Hey up everyone, welcome back. Well, still on with the Indian, and you may notice lurking in the picture here the old dunce cap, because I thought I was going to have to put it on. I had a comment from the last video from one of our viewers, a gentleman by the name of Tony Bell. Isn't it awful? Look, I've got to start writing things down in notebooks because I forget them. And he suggested, well he didn't suggest, he mentioned, had I tried it with the stand up? Well, of course, I was up at the house when I read that, so I thought, damn, never thought of that. I didn't think it would make much difference because of the way these springs have to move from one side of the pivot point to the other. But anyway, I came back and I checked it, and no, it only made about half an inch of difference, so we didn't have to put this on, but I should have thought of it. Anyway, that's the first job we're going to do because I've sorted out how to do it. So let me zoom you in and I'll show you what I did. Now I decided I needed to make an extension to get this spring to come down. So I made this, made it out of stainless steel. So what I've got is a hook. I cut it thin and made a hook on it, and I made the hook long so the spring couldn't accidentally bounce off. And at this end I put a hole in to go on there. Now the spring, of course, when it goes on here, that can be opened out a little bit, so it goes over this and into the groove on the back. This bit's 5/16, the groove is about 1/4. But being solid, I had to make this a 5/16 hole to get it on. So the first thing I did was, because of the thickness of this, I milled a little bit off each side so that when it went on it was actually in there. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, this is going to get pulled upwards. So a little bit like those keyhole shaped things you get for putting on screws on the wall, where you put it over the screw head and then slide it down. I did the same thing here, only in the opposite direction. I came down using a 1/4 inch mill a little bit and then milled out so it was thickness, so that goes on there, and then when the spring pulls it, it pulls it up into there, and it's good and solid. Next thing I found was it was basically up against this, so I had to put a couple of washers in here, a couple of stainless steel washers. And this, by the way, is BSC thread, 26 threads per inch, 3/8. And I don't like fine threads in aluminium. I don't know why they didn't put a BSW or a BSF thread to give it a little bit of meat, but anyway, they didn't. So what we do is we hook that over the spring like thus. You get a grip of it. Come on now, be a good boy. What's happening is this clamp keeps catching on there, and I can't it gets in the way. Let's try that. There it goes. So there we are. And it misses the nut, and I think that's good and strong enough. That'll keep that up there. I still don't think I could get this all the way down here. I tried, I'll be honest with you, I did. I put levers on and all sorts of things, and it just wasn't going to come. Well, I didn't think it was. So anyway, I'm happy with that. Right, so let me put the exhaust pipes on. Oh, and I did remember to buy clamps for the silencer. So I'm going to put the pipe on and everything, and then we'll come back. So there's the exhaust pipe on. Thin clamp on, bolted up. I put the footrest on as well on this side. There's the silencer clip I bought, and of course, bought by part number, bought by part number. Too small. So we'll just put that on for now, and I'll have to get some bigger clips. I'll just put this in to hold it. What I've decided to do here, because in the parts book it didn't give the length of this, I'm assuming they made this piece on here too long. I've got some 7/16 rod, so I'm just gonna, I've got the 7/16 British Standard cycle, so I'll thread both ends and I'll make a longer one. So let me just put that in there for now to take the weight of this. There we go. Right, that's that side looking good. Let's go around the other side. Now, seeing as I've got the carb all stripped clean and put new gaskets and everything, I thought I'd just give you a little run through on the monobloc for those of you who are more used to the concentrics, and even if you're a sprog, more used to Mikunis or fuel injection. Okay, Amel monobloc. Called a monobloc because the float chamber is all in one with the choke and the rest of it. Prior carburetors would have a separate float chamber here, and there'd be a connection across the bottom, bolted up. Or if it was an Amel GP carb, of course, actually remotely mounted with hoses going to it. And aren't they fun to set up? Okay, so there's the body. There's the choke block that goes inside. Then the various bits and pieces. Here's the air holes. So one air hole, of course, is for the pilot jet. Pilot jet is there. That screws into the bottom with a little cover over it. You'll see all this as I put it together. Then there is an air screw which goes in there. This carb actually was missing one, so this is the one out of the kit. Throttle stop. The throttle slide sits on that, so you can move it up and down, and you know, you shouldn't be using that to adjust your tick over. Tick over should be done with the air screw. Okay, then in the bottom you have this piece that screws in. There's the needle jet, and that together with the taper on the needle, the size of this and the taper of the needle, gives you your 1/4 to 3/4 metering. Close to 1/8 is the little pilot jet. Then 1/8 to 1/4 is the cutaway on the slide. 1/4 to 3/4 is the needle, and finally 1/4 to full throttle is the main jet, which on the monoblocs screws into the bottom of there and then has a cover on it. Right. Float goes in there. Amel float, and it even says on it front. So that goes on there like that, and as it fills up, it comes up and cuts off the needle. This bit screws into there, that's your fuel feed, and that's where the needle seat is in there. Pop. Now, one thing to remember about these floats when you're rebuilding this is there's a little brass thing. There, it's a little brass spacer which goes on there, and that stops this migrating off the end. 3-point cover goes on there. These can warp, so be careful with that. And finally, the ubiquitous tickler, which screws into here. And then when you press that down, bonk, bonk, it presses on the float, and you can flood the carb for starting in cold weather, etc. Throttle slide with cutaways, and the number is stamped on the top for the cutaway. Spring, top, knurl, and these are screwed on. They're not two screws. The top goes on, and then there is the knurled ring which screws on there to hold it on. So that's a monobloc. The only problems the monobloc had was that they were susceptible to flooding and starving when the bike wasn't vertical. Because you see, on here you know, you want the float level, the fuel level in here to be just right on this part so that the venturi can pull the fuel out. Well, of course, the float level in here, actually, there's a little pip on there to tell you where the float level should be, is like this, and the point it swivels on, its centre of rotation, if you like, what we could call, if we were on a ship, the centre of flotation, but that's getting a bit too technical, means that when the carb goes like this, as you can see, the level on the jet has gone down so it can starve, and when the carb goes like that, you can flood out of the needle jet. So, I mean, it's not a huge thing. Nobody spends ages riding like that, but it was a problem. Whereas when you have a concentric carburetor of any kind, where the float is down here, the line is there, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, just a useless piece of information. So let's look at the rebuild kit. Now, I've just looked at it myself, and I was most disappointed to find that the one thing that isn't in a complete rebuild kit is a new float needle. That would have been something that I would definitely have thought should go in there. But never mind. So what there is in here is a new O-ring for there, and of course the one I've got is the wrong one. There are two types of O-rings, these thin ones, and well, I always have some, thick ones, and that one, as you see, is the one that goes in there. Actually, that's an old one. I wonder why that's in the bag. Look, that's rotted away. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a new O-ring in. There's a new gasket that goes on there. There's a new gasket for this. There are new needles and springs. There's a new fuel filter, which of course goes on there when that goes in. Various little gaskets. 3 nice new screws for there, which, to be quite honest, I could have done without those and rather have had the needle. So let me put this together and then we'll put it on the bike. There it is all together. I didn't take the time to show you everything. It's all, you know, you can't really go wrong. Things just screw in. The only couple of things worthy of note, apart from that little brass spacer there, are that this doesn't have, are you in view there? Yeah. This doesn't have a what's it? What's a what's it? A fibre washer, God, a sealing washer. It's actually tapered slightly, so it goes into there. And the other thing is, as I mentioned, the pilot jet, that screws in all the way, and then you put your little fibre washer on, and then this little end cap goes on there. And that's it. There it is. Oh, oh, oh. No it isn't. No it isn't. Forgot the tickler. Can't have an anal carb without a tickler, can you? So let's take the old fibre washer off now that we know what they're called. And hopefully, no, that isn't the one. So why don't they put a fibre washer the right size in there? Because that's definitely not it. Alright, hold on 1 second. See if we have one here, the right size. No, we don't. let me switch you off for a moment because I've actually got bags. You know when you get gasket sets and there always seems to be some washers left over. Well, let me find one. Right, well I can't find one, of course. So I'll pop this in there so that I know where it is, because I can, you know, take it out and put one on at any time. So there's one thing I'll mention about this. You'll notice it's got a hole in there and the pin itself is hollow. Now this is where the float chamber vents up through this. Right, as fuel's going in and that sort of, it gets to the point, of course, where it's covering the actual entry into the jet passages. So the air's got to get out somewhere and it comes out this way. And I once had a very annoying problem with a monobloc. It kept flooding. Didn't matter what I did, it would flood out of the air hole from the passage for the main jet and the needle jet there. And all it was that this was bunged up so that the air couldn't get out, so the fuel was just going in, going through and pushing straight out. You know, the weight from the tank was just pushing it through. So when you're taking it apart and cleaning it up, make sure you clean that out. And if you've got a strange flooding problem, as I say, it's not just that it floods, but it just pours out, then it could be that. So I'll just screw that in there like that. Then, as I say, there are two types of O-ring, a thick one and a thin one, and that's the thick one for there. So there's an extra O-ring for me. Put that in a bag, put it away with all the other bits and pieces. Right, so next thing I'm going to do is put this lot together with the new cable. Now this is probably showing you everything you already know, but just to keep everything together we'll do it. Right, so if you had the twist grip on, don't forget to put that on first, because there's nothing worse than getting everything on and suddenly realising you haven't put that on. So that goes on. Then you'll notice this has a little cup on the end of it. That goes in that hole. There isn't a threaded adapter in these. That goes in there. Then on goes your spring. Then that goes in there like that. And pulls up into there. So it's in the little hole. Now then, the needles on these, they go in. We'll put it on the middle slot. And unlike the concentrics that have that horseshoe shaped thing, these have one of these. Same idea though, it just goes in. Get it on the one you want. Flip it in. There we go. Then on this end, you're going to put this. Oh. I'm going to have to use a different. This isn't the twist grip that came with it. Okay. Let's see if I've got another twist grip. Well, I found a nice twist grip, but of course the end is a different size. So this part is a different size here. So I'm going to take the new grip off. And of course it's well stuck on. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you a little dodge. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that in there, which just fortunately nicely fits in. I'll do this standing up, well I'm standing up, but I mean upright in the vise, just so that you can see it, right? So that's bunging up that end. Then we get some compressed air. Bingo! It's off. There you go. And of course it goes without saying that that little trick to expand the rubber to get it off works for putting them back on as well. So let's have a look, see what we've got. There's that small one that didn't work. There's a bigger one. So that goes through there now, see? Goes into the little hole. Should go into the little hole. Oh, you wouldn't credit this, would you? Eh? Brand new cables, new everything. Alright, let me drill a bit hole in there to fit that in. Alright, I'm back. I've drilled a hole into the other half of this piece here. So now, that'll go in there like that. That'll go on there like that. There like that. Couple of screws, as you well know. As I say, sorry for showing you all this, but you know, now in order to have a hole big enough for the head of the cable to go through, you've now got a hole, of course, which is too big for that. So what you need, and it's rolling around here somewhere, I definitely put it here. Oh God. There it is. Here's a little ferrule, a little split ferrule. Which goes on like that. So there we are. Okay, so let's go and fit all this. I'm back again. I did forget something. This of course is all set up ready to take a choke. Here in the States I never bother to put them on for the simple reason that nobody ever takes their bikes out when it's cold. But what that does is it leaves a hole in here, and AIM will make, for just such an eventuality, a little plug to screw in there. There you go. Right, now we'll put it on. Now we can put the carburetor on. I've slid this out of the way because when I checked, the cable's got to go through there. So put this in here, make sure the needle goes through that the hole. Get it lined up with its slot. But why is it AIM needles never want to go down the needle jet? Yakunis, everybody else, just slide straight in. There we go. Second. Now then, it's going to go in there like that. Got our O-ring on, so don't forget you don't need a gasket if you've got an O-ring. And now we need two. So let's put a couple of little star lock washers on these. I'm going to put the one in on the other side first because there's just a little more space, not a lot, but a little bit. There we go, that holds that up. To say there isn't much room is putting it mildly. Alright, so then that's going to go back in there for now. Okay, let me tighten this up. Then we're going to come back and look at putting this air filter on, because we're going to have to make a piece up for the missing baffle. Right, now let me start off by showing you this inside, the mounting. Right, now from the back of here to where that will go onto there is 2 inches. So what's going to go in is, you can see the rubber there. Take that back off now. I just wanted to make sure it went through alright. So that goes in there like so, and onto the rubber. Then that goes in. Then there would be a baffle. Then this piece goes in with this bracket here up against that. Right. Now let me take these out and I'll show you how it works and how I think the baffle works. Now, as I said, from the back of that airbox to where we would bolt to is 2 inches, and this is also 2 inches. This, which I think I mentioned isn't actually the right filter, but it's the one they supply with it, is about 5/16 less than that. When that's on, bolted up, we've got a 1/4 of an inch gap just there. It would be on like that. So what I think, the picture of the baffle just shows a round plate with holes in it. Now, as you can see from this type of filter, what we want is for the air to go in here, through the filter, and then out to the carb. So what I think the baffle does is the baffle on its radius is solid to here, so that when it's clamped up it seals this, and then this section here is where the holes are. Then when this is on with its gap, the air can come in the side, go through the holes, through the filter, and into the carb. So as I said, the one piece you can't get, well, 2 pieces, there's also a felt ring, which I assume is with the original filter, just to help you seal the baffle against that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to cut a plate that will fit inside this. Then that's going to go on there, and as I say, we'll have holes in the centre of it, 1 hole for the mounting. It's going to press that in, and then when that goes on, the air will be able to get in through the holes. So let me measure this. The first thing we'll do is we'll cut a plate and we'll drill a hole in the centre. Oh, and by the way, if you thought things were going nice and easily, when I was putting the carb on, I dropped that little split ferrule that goes into the twist grip. So that is on the floor, along with several thousand other little things that I've lost and always seem to disappear. Anyway, let's cut some metal. Now the disc wants to be 5.5 inches diameter. I'm making it out of some slightly thicker sheet because this is going to be bolted down in the centre, so I don't want it, and sort of touching that filter on the edge, so I don't want it flimsy so that it buckles. I want it to squish down on this. So I put some red Dykem on, because as you know I like red. And in deference to Steam Shop, we're going to do it sort of the old-fashioned way. So there's my mark. Good in it, Dave. So I'll cut that out on the bandsaw and use the sanding, the belt sander to get it round. And then we'll drill this hole in the centre, make sure it fits, and then we'll mark it out. And I'll, in fact, actually, I'll put a bit more die chem on. I won't bore you with it, and I'll make another mark so that I know how thick the filter is. So let me get on and do that. Now then, there's our round piece, and as I say, I marked it there as well, so I know where to drill my holes. That matches up with the centre of that. Actually, if we had the original filter instead of a rigid one like this, which is just a folded paper thing, there is like a wire loop in here which is there to just hold that filter off the side, so there's a gap for the air. Alright, so that's going to go in there. This course is round, that isn't exactly round, but it's near enough, he says. There we go. So that'll go in there nice and tight. And as I say, I made it a 16 gauge, so even with the holes in. So that goes in there. Hole in the centre for the bolt to come through. The centre of this will go up against that projecting boss that you saw inside the air box. Then that goes on, and there's our gap for the air to get through. So next thing to do is for me to drill some holes in this. And then I'm just going to aerosol it black. I'll use primer and stuff, but I'm not going to go mad with the paint. And I'm not going to paint all this red either. I don't know whether it is standard, but it's inside the airbox, so none of it shows. So let me drill some holes in this. I've got to be careful about this. I've got to give it some thought, because I want to drill enough holes in, of course, to let it breathe well. But I don't want to drill so many holes in it that it gets all weak in the centre, so that when it gets bolted down it reduces the strength of this plate. So anyway, let me drill some holes. Now I've had to make up another piece. Might even have been what the felt ring was for, actually, because I found that when I put that in and then put that in and then put that on the top, this wasn't going right to the back, it was loose like this. So what I needed was something to fill this space here. So I turned up a ring. For those of you who watch the Trials bike build, this is a cutting board, kitchen cutting board. This is great stuff. As you can see, it machines nicely. You can drill and tap it. You can do all sorts of stuff. So anyway, I made a piece. I could have made it slightly thinner actually, but that goes in there, like so. Brings that out to there. Then when this goes on, we have our gap, nice big gap, you see. And now when I put it in, it bolts up tight against the back of the toolbox, or the air filter box. So what I've got to do now is cut these holes out. I don't know whether to cut holes, to mill slots, to cut out a sort of segment like that. I've got a feeling that might make it too weak. I'll put some lines on and drill some holes and then come back. Okay, I clamped this down onto a piece of wood in the mill so I can just move around and drill it easily. And what I did to decide on the holes was I got the area of the choke. It's a 1 1/16 inch carb, so that's 0.9 of a square inch. And then this drill, the area of this drill is 0.06, so that means 15 holes in this will give me the same surface area as the choke. So providing I've got 15 or more, we should be pulling the same amount of air. It's a bit like when you work out for the stove, you know, if the wood stove's got so much going up the chimney, you've got to have so much coming in at the bottom. So I've laid out some lines so that I can start and drill them and get them looking reasonably tidy, even though you're not going to see it. It always looks nicer if it's tidy. So let me drill some holes and then I'll bring you back. Right, I've drilled my holes. So, goes on there like that. So now we have air going in through there, through the filter and to the carb. And then that goes on there like that. There's our nice air going through. Let's see if it fits. Okay, I put a little bit of extra light on so hopefully you can see this. So that's going to go in there. On there like that. That of course would normally have its little piece of rubber hose. And that's going to go on like that. And then that is going to screw on there, and that is the support, the mounting support for the cover. Bolts up tight so that now doesn't wobble. Cover goes on, everything's right. So that's that. I'll put a bit of pipe on there because I'll have to cut it to length, a couple of clips, and that's that. Then we can do this wiring. Now, you remember when I started this video I had the dunce cap out and thought I maybe should have wore it. Well, I don't know about dunce cap, but we have a catastrophe. Let me move you around and I'll show you. As I was having lunch, it suddenly struck me, did I have enough room in here for the ignition switch? Well, I have lots of room in there for the ignition switch, but look at that. Could put a concentric carb on, I suppose. That is what you call a real bummer, because to repair this properly I'd have to weld that hole up, which means destroying the paint on this. So I'd have to take all this part again, repair that, sandblast it, repaint it all. Isn't that just an absolute bummer? Got to put it further out. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I'm going to go to all that trouble. This is really, really annoying me. What I might just do is get one of those little black plastic plugs, put that in there, and then maybe mount this somewhere else. I might even mount it in the side panel. Funnily enough, when I was searching the other day for bits and pieces, because it's really weird, I found, you know, this is all bog standard, this bike, but I keep finding things that are on meteors and constellations and stuff like that. And funnily enough, I couldn't find anything about the clutch, the scissor clutch, looking at the super meteors and all the rest of it. And I remembered my first constellation had the scissor clutch, second one had an ordinary cable and push rod. When I go looking in amongst the meteor, which is the 500, there's a parts book with the scissor clutch mechanism, and also there was a side panel. Let me move you a little bit here. There was a side panel that had a switch here. So right now I'm just so annoyed. I don't know what to do, but as I say, I do not think I'm going to take this all apart and repaint it. I mean, it's not a concourse tech restoration, and I think as long as it looks tidy and smart, it's going to be fine. Who knows, later on I might suddenly get all and have to do it, but I really doubt it. So anyway, I think that is probably enough for this video. By the time we get the next one, I should have the couple of bits, the couple of bolts and stuff. I ordered more case screws, and they had half the case screws in the proper cheese head slots. And they got in touch with me and said, you know, our computer says we have them in stock, but we don't have, and apparently we haven't had them for ages. So I said, tell me what, have you got them in Allen heads? And he said, yes, I've got all the lengths, BSW, 1/4 inch in Allen head. I said, fine, just send me them. So that's that. All right, that's enough for today, obviously. So you enjoy yourselves, and I'm going to go and throw myself under a bus or something. Bye for now.